everyone's familiar with the Galapagos Islands
I
and
edited
the
a book on it.
and the finches that were found there.
Are they different species?
Well, actually, I'm not even going to quibble over species. That varies depending on your experiment.
Definition.
However, there were finches introduced to Lysan Island, which is about 1,000 miles north of Honolulu, Hawaii, and let's see, in 1967, they were taken over to Southeast Island. Now, Lysan and Southeast Islands, they're actually atolls and clumps of about 4 islands apiece. By 1984, there were the birds in the Southeast Island area were different from the Lysan Islands, and it was only 17 years later. And it was primarily in bill shape, which is the way that they're classified. In 87, 20 years total here, they were different on all 4 of the islands. And what we're looking at is a phenotypic phenomenon, that is the exterior. They haven't done a genetic study to see how they differ genetically. We're just looking at shapes. And this short period of time to get the changes that they've seen on these different islands is way too fast for any kind of evolution and that sort of thing to occur. And my point here is that environment plays a role in what things look like. With the finches, well, Thomas Smith at UC Berkeley did a study with the African finches and found that the offspring could have 2 different bill sizes. And depending on then the food available as to which one would survive and predominate. And when I referred to not differentiating between an inherited trait and a mutation, this is what I had in mind. Where the genetic variety, such as in dogs, the variety is there in your prototypical dog. And then depending on the factors, whether breeding or, I was going to say environment, but wild dogs around the world are pretty much the same. They're a little curly-haired, 30
You're saying
pounds or
coyotes,
so.
dogs, and wolves are all the same species. Of course they are.
But a lot of what evolutionists are looking at that are differentiating species, it's morphology, and some of that is due to the environment. Also the way you use parts of the body. I don't have an overhead for this, but the Eskimos have a very slight ridge in the top of their head. And
Anchor the jaw muscles.
that's right, where the jaw muscles. What they do to soften leather, they chew on it. The women do anyway. Now, they didn't even specify in the picture I saw as to whether it was a man's or a woman's. But they chew on blubber, and I'm told that's got the flavor of kerosene and the texture of rubber. So by using the jaw more, the ridge apparently developed because it was used.
When you don't have a technology for tanning hides, you chew them until they soften. And
Thank God for technology.
jaw, you could get into a biting contest with a short-faced bear and come up pretty well, maybe.
So my point here is simply that phenotype doesn't necessarily reflect a change in the DNA. And since you're looking at fossils, you're looking at appearances.
Extremely hard to tell. Right.
Very
You're
tough.
absolutely
Can
right
I bring
about
up something
that.
about food? Somebody hungry?
Oh, Lord.
Here's some food.
What's the-
Drosophila melanogaster. I just went to the store this morning and bought this. Drosophila melanogaster is the most experimented on creature on this planet.
Yes.
It has been subjected to radiation, heat, every possible modification known to science. The whole idea of evolution being a science, I think it's a good religion. I think it is a good observational type science, but it is not a science that is demonstrable. Because right there you have a product that is sold across the market that is a mutation, an actually reproducible mutation of Drosophila melanogaster, the red-eyed fruit fly. The melanogaster comes from the stuffing. And if you could come up with a permanent mutation of that, you would basically solve all your problems of feeding your fish and your reptiles at home, and you'd make $1 million. If you come up with a permanent mutation on that, you would be in this book or something similar. There are no evolutionists since Darwin who have made a name for themselves. All you gotta do is come up with one new species. Last week, there was an announcement on the radio addressing Johns of 23 new species that were discovered in some part of the world. But discovered is the key word. They were not, it was not observed that they, quote, evolved. Yet we've been doing the same kind of thing that we say causes evolution to these creatures for over 3,000 generations of them. They reproduce themselves every 12 days.
There have been generations of grad students who earned their way as graduate assistants, doing nothing but sorting and counting.
Yes, and they're all the same creature that Darwin experimented with, not Darwin, Mendel experimented with 5 years after Darwin.
How do you explain antibiotic-resistant bacteria?
It's a loss of information. The antibiotic,
It's a mutation.
pardon me, the antibiotic reacts with a protein in the one I'm thinking of. I'll limit it to that. And not every one of the bacterium produces that protein. They're not dominant.
The line evolves. The line that's exposed to the antibiotic evolves into something else.
I'm not
Change in
saying-
response to its environment.
Well, actually,
That's evolution, and it's observable right under your nose.
actually,
It won't
it's more like,
rebreed with its
pardon me,
previous.
I've still got the floor. It's more like the peppered moth here, where you've got
Just if you're in
the
it's just not true.
you've got both types, the bacterium that produces the protein and those that don't. Those that don't are not as competitive in the, shall we say, the wild. And when you add the antibiotic, they predominate because they don't have the protein that interacts with the antibiotic to kill them, that produces a toxin.
But you deny that it's genes interacting with the environment and differential reproduction?
Oh, no,
differential
change
survival
occurs.
because of that?
Separating
occurs.
mutation from
That's what
evolution.
evolution is. So
No,
you have
mutation
No,
is
no,
not
not exactly.
evolution.
No.
Mutation is one of the mechanisms, but it doesn't
Thank you.
prove evolution.
Pleasure.
You didn't hear anything I said about that.
Okay.
You've got genes and environment interacting
Right,
in these bugs or
Agreed.
in the moths.
agreed.
And that's causing differential survival based on the
Agreed.
environment.
No problem with
That's
that.
evolution. That's changing
Well-
the genetic
No, that
composition.
Pardon me,
has
Dan.
not changed the
Yes, it
genetic,
is.
those moths have not changed their genetic structure.
You are
They
arguing
have
that
gone
water
back.
isn't wet.
No, they have gone back in New Jersey and some of the other industrial communities, they have gone back to their original color. They have gone back to the original color. It's a
Pardon me, Dan.
mutation within the
When-
species.
Dan,
When the environment
this is my
changes.
40 minutes. I understand where you're going, and as far as you've gone, I agree with you. Change does occur. I'm not saying it doesn't. The direction of the change is in question. If the direction of the change,
Evolution supposes no direction.
well,
what he's saying is
yes,
anything that
I
comes
understand
from
what you're
environment
saying.
is evolution.
Yeah.
okay. Just to say change occurs, I've heard evolution defined that way. Says so little that were I still in biology and I was a scientist and I was handed a theory that said change occurs, I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, where do you go with that?